This episode is sponsored by the Slang Self-Doubt Prayer Journal. Over the past 4 years, I have had the opportunity to help over 30 women identify, accept, and take action in the parts of their lives where they feel stuck. My heart's desire is to do that with every woman I come in contact with, but the truth is that's not realistic. So instead, I created a prayer journal that goes through that same journey. The Slang Self-Doubt Prayer Journal is designed for you to dig deep and answer questions that will pull out where you are stuck on your journey. The Slang Self-Doubt Prayer Journal consists of 6 sections of journal prompts and areas for reflections for when you want to dig a little deeper and just take your thoughts to another level. Whether it takes you 6 weeks or 6 months to complete, I promise you will not regret it. Head on over to my website at www.feliciawallace.com and select the books tab to make your purchase. If you are ready to find your fears and slay them, go to www.feliciawallace.com, select books, and get your copy today. You're listening to the Slang Self-Doubt Podcast with Coach Felicia, where we empower Black women to overcome their doubts, fears, and insecurities in order to give birth to their God-given purpose. Join me and sometimes some of my friends on our journey as we remind you that you are not alone. I'm Felicia Wallace, and together we will find our fears and slay them. Welcome back to another episode of the Slang Self-Doubt Podcast. I am here with Neidy Hornsby from Noir IP or Guard Your Genius, whichever one. It's all the same. Hey, Neidy, how are you?
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome.
Yeah.
I am so excited. So you guys, I always tell you like how I know people. So I worked with Neidy and she helped me with, I don't think I've officially announced it, but now I'm going to officially announce it, that she helped me with trademarking Slang Self-Doubt, which it is now officially trademarked.
Officially trademark, which is like the ultimate boss move
It
as an
is.
entrepreneur. So
Listen,
congratulations again.
Thank you. When I tell you, I cried my eyes out after that. And so even trying to explain this to my husband, I was like, no, you don't understand. I own this. And he was like, okay, but didn't you? I was like, no. Like officially in the government's name. I was like, I own it. He was like, oh, okay. You know, because some people don't get it. They see it.
Yeah.
They know, it's like, you know it, but you don't really know it. And you don't understand how important it is until it actually happens. And you know, that's a whole story in itself, the process and all of that stuff. So I just want to tell you publicly, thank you, you know, and I'll, you know, usually I be like to keep people to myself, but I'm gonna share you with the world so people can get their stuff together.
You're very, very welcome. I do this often, but I don't take it lightly. When people hire us, especially for trademark protection, is you're handing over your baby, right? And you're trusting us to make sure that we deliver on our promise. So thank you for trusting us with that journey.
Oh, you are so welcome. So we'll get into that a little later, y'all, but y'all know what we are here about. So Neidy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Sure. So my name is Neidy Hornsby. I am a wife, homeschooling mom of 3, and an entrepreneur. I am the founder and CEO of Noir IP, and we are a business and trademark law firm, specifically focused on helping female founders. So we have a service that, you know, throughout the life cycle of a business, we have a service for. So we meet entrepreneurs where they're at, and it's one of my favorite things to do because I work with women like you. So I'm uplifted every day by my clients.
Yes, I love it. And for me, I'm almost positive I was referred to you by somebody else who had worked with you, because the time go by, sometimes you just forget, right? I knew, but I think that oh no, I'm saying that it is definitely important. And I love the fact that, you know, when you do this, when you're thinking about trademarking, you know, you get a lot of different advice. You get a lot of different thoughts and people tell you, oh, you can do it yourself. All you got to do is do this, or you go with this person or go with that person, or just go on Google this and they'll walk you through it. And for me, I was like, listen, I take this as serious as I take my taxes. I do not fool around with the government. I do not no, if I want it to be official and I want the foundation to be strong, I'm going through it the right way. On top of the fact that ain't my ministry. I barely read the fine print of my cell phone stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, what you're agreeing to, I'm like, I'm not even, I want to, like, I felt like I needed to entrust somebody who that's your job. Like, if that is your job and that's what you're supposed to do, you know, that I have some ownership on that. But I was like, I was not about to fill out no paperwork and be all the way wrong. And then I've also heard, which I'm sure we all have heard, horror stories of people doing things on their own and being like, well, I thought I was supposed to do it this way. And so for me, I am grateful that I had y'all, because I really was like, I felt no pressure throughout the whole process, right? Like, it was like, well, the pressure of me was just like, Lord, please, let this go through.
Yeah. But
now
we all have our lane, right?
Yes.
The more that I am on this entrepreneur journey, I realized that there's a lot of things that we could do if we wanted to, but there's people that, you know, spend their time and that's their craft, right? So you have to trust people to do what they're good at. You know what I mean?
And you were good at what you do, sis.
Thank you.
So, of course, we're here and we're talking all things self-doubt. So let's talk about your journey and how you got to, did you always know you wanted to do trademarking? Was this something like, did it start somewhere else and then you ended up here? So let's talk about how we get here.
Listen, I think that I am the poster child for your show, right? Because self-doubt shows up in my life every Tuesday at noon, right? Like, it is just a consistent theme from a child. I don't know. I think women tend to definitely suffer more than men in that regard, but it has always been like a shadow. And whenever I think I beat it in this area, it's like, okay, but what about here?
Right.
So when I think about even how I got here, it's by grace, because at every turn, you know, self-doubt always showed up, right? So I knew that I wanted to be an attorney from when I was a child. Like, I sued Barbie like 8 times. So I knew that was in my spirit. Like, I was going to be an attorney. I never thought it was going to be IP. IP wasn't even in, you know, the realm of my interest. But you know, then so long story short, you know, I go to law school, self-doubt there, like, am I really gonna get in? And I get in, and then self-doubt again, well, are you gonna get through? Like, you know, the law school changes you because it is such a rigorous process, and it breaks you down, really. So, you know, are you gonna get through? No, you're not gonna get through. I happen to get through, right? So there you see like this pattern of self-doubt showing up. Then I graduate and I get a job. I do the traditional corporate thing, the whole 9-to-5 thing. But then I become a mom, right? And then things change. And I realized that for me, the type of wife and mom that I wanted to be, just, it wasn't compatible with like the 9-to-5 hustle. It just, my value system just didn't match. And I get that, right? Like, if corporate America is corporate America and it works for a lot of women, it just didn't work for me. So self-doubt shows up again and says, well, are you going to jump out on your own? Like, who knows you? Nobody knows you. Do you see how
listen, I know, because this is, I always say, like, this is my life. Like, this is, I never understood why God gave it to me, but I was like, oh, I totally get it, because every day, like you said, every day it shows up. And one of the things that when you said that even as a child, I was having a conversation with my son, and I was like, you know, when we were kids, you know, it was only a limited amount of things that girls could do. It was like teacher, nurse, you know, and you felt like that you were kind of in this space where, like, this is the only thing that, like, okay, maybe lawyer, right? But for me, I didn't think we could be a lawyer. I'm telling you, I didn't think I could be a lawyer till I seen Clay Huxtable, and I was like, oh, they can be lawyers. Like, we can be lawyers too.
So constant, that theme, right? So then I just, you know, I bet on myself, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And I opened up a firm, no idea what I was doing. I was taking any type of law, like whoever could write a check, I was their lawyer. You hear me?
Yes,
like,
I'll do it.
Would keep the lights on. And I did that for a while. I think I did that for like 2 years. And then my husband needed help with some IP stuff, and I helped him. I'm like, this is really cool. Like, what is this about? And I start to learn it, right? And then I'm like, I think I want to do this. And here I am, like,
wow,
5 years later, and this is the world that I operate in. But again, you can see very clearly that just self-doubt continue to show up. And you know what? I don't experience it as much professionally speaking, but as a mother, like, well, I'm building this business and I spend a lot of time at work. Am I being a good mom? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, pick your poison. Yeah. It's going to be there.
No, yeah, that's real. And I think that one of the things that I say often is that self-doubt shows up in every area of your life, in your relationships, in your parenting, in your marriage, because I think that ultimately there's something in all of us that questions everything that we do. And because it's in you, it's going to show up in every area of your life. I think that there's people who think that, oh no, it only comes up at work. You may not notice the fact that it comes up at home, but it do. And maybe it's not as heavy as it is at work, or as heavy as it is in the other places, but it is absolutely there. And I've learned during this journey and in sharing and, talking to women like you, how common it is, right? Where it wasn't something, because it wasn't something that we talked about, and something that it felt like it was taboo, or maybe it didn't really exist. And I'm starting to notice, I'm like, there's so many people that are talking about it now, who are bringing a light to this fear and overcoming doubt and slaying self-doubt, right? And really calling a thing, and like being very specific about it, so that they know when it shows up what exactly it is. And so when you transitioned into, saying, okay, I'm going to do IPs, and did you already know you were going to specifically work with women?
I didn't, but just the way that things happen, my first couple of clients were women. It just happened that way. I didn't seek them out. It just happened that way. And then, we've been very blessed that we don't advertise, right? Our clients are all like, pick any client and they'll tell you, oh, so-and-so told me to call you.
Yeah.
So they're all
based, and those are the best. Those are the best clients, right?
They're all, they're all based on referrals. So it usually just happens to be that it's a woman because another woman recommended us, right? And then I started to realize that, I get on these calls with these women and they are like, building these amazing dope brands and amazing businesses. I just had a consultation with a woman like 3 weeks ago, and she's breastfeeding as she is telling me about this amazing brand that, she needs help protecting some stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, she's breastfeeding. Like, that's how amazing we are, right? Like, and she's not missing a beat. Like, she is a boss, right? Like, she's on top of her stuff. And that happens, like, that type of situation happens often. And I realized that, I grow so much from being in the realm around, in the orbit of these people who are doing amazing things. And I get off these calls like, oh yeah, I gotta get to work. I gotta get to work.
I feel you. Oh my goodness. It's so funny that you say that, because I feel the same way when I get off of these interviews, especially when, there's a mixture of people that I seek out and I say, oh my gosh, like this person, I have to hear their story. I do want them, I want them on the show. And then there's other people who reach out to me and they're like, oh, I, really want to be on the show, want to share my story. And I walk away from it being like, Lord, what am I doing? Because this person right here, this person right here.
That's a blessing, right? Because you get to see that, the limitations are all self-imposed, right? The battle is definitely in the mind. So when and by the way, the coolest part about my job is that I get to meet people at the most exciting part of their life, right? Like, I'm not dealing with someone at the end of a marriage or someone facing, the loss of freedom. I'm talking to people when they're like high off life. Like, I am building this, right? And I get to play a tiny but very important role in that. And I don't take it lightly. Like I was saying earlier, like, you are trusting me with the vision that really only you see. Like, we love your podcast, we love your content, but at the end of the day, this is your baby, right?
Yeah.
It lives in your head. Only you see it. Only you can build it to what we get to enjoy. So for you to trust me with that, that's a big deal.
It is. So, yeah, no, I love that though. But I think the powerful thing about it and what it is that, you know, I would say that both of us are doing and being able to use what we have to be able to impact and encourage other women that look just like us. On top of that is like, if you don't need another motivator, that's the other part. So I go
don't need another motivator. Okay.
I go for one end of like, Lord, what am I doing, to being like, Lord, this is like, I get to do this every day. I get to do this like, this is my job.
Those are the two, like, the most real emotions that I feel every day. Like, on the one hand, it's like, oh wow, I have to get to work. Yes. And on the other hand, it's like, did she just like entrust me with that? Did she really just share that with me? Do I really get to work with her on that? Girl, it's nothing like
it definitely is. So in talking about self-doubt and how self-doubt has showed up in your journey as you transitioned into doing IPs and doing it for, you know, female founders and really being in this space, how have you been able to what are some practical tools that you do to kind of combat it? And also, because I would assume, I'm just assuming, but I would assume that sometimes when you're having these conversations, because I believe I probably brought some of my self-doubts into the conversation that we had in the beginning, but how do you combat that as well? Like, when your clients are coming to you knowing that they need to get this done, but they have their own self-doubt about whether or not this should be happening, whether or not they can see this through, all of those things. How do you help them? And then also, what are some practical tips that you do for yourself when it shows up? If you've been listening to this podcast or following me on social media for a while and you're ready to start your journey to healing, or you're ready to confront your doubts and insecurities, there are 3 ways I can help. First, you can download the journal prompt from my website. Use this as a guide to get back on track with where God is calling you. Secondly, you can go to my website and purchase the Slaying Self-Doubt Prayer Journal. Using this prompt and journal will pull out where you are stuck on your journey. These questions will force you to dig deep and find your fears. Lastly, if you're ready to invest in your healing journey and work directly with me, book a 30-minute connection call with me today. This allows us to see if we are a good fit for each other. So head on over to my website, www.feliciawallace.com, to do one or all 3 of these. That's www.feliciawallace.com. Now, back to the show.
So I'm very good at identifying that voice. And I read a book. Oh my goodness. I forget. I think it's Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I'm pretty sure it's Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She says that, you know, when fear shows up, you have to have a conversation with it, right? And you have to say, I hear you. And that's interesting that you feel that way. I will take that into consideration, but you don't get to drive.
Oh,
you can be in the car. You don't get to touch the radio though. Like I'll give you your space, but you don't get to, you have no say where we go. Yeah. And that stuck with me because I feel like, I don't know about anybody else, but I know that self-doubt is just always going to be there.
Yep.
How much room I give it to make decisions, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and remember, fear does serve a role, right?
Like, yeah, it protects us.
You're not going to jump into traffic, and you're not going to invest all of your savings on an idea that you're not sure of without research. So there's caution that has to be taken. But so I think that for me, I acknowledge it, and I'm like, I hear you, and I can see how that's scary, Neidy. But on the other side of that, what are the opportunities that you are going to miss out on by not just pushing through? That's one practice that I do. It's just a quick conversation with myself. I acknowledge that my fear is trying to protect me, but sometimes I don't need it, right? And then these stickies, these are all either like an affirmation or like a verse, and I change them out every week depending on what I feel like I'm going to need for the week. So I just put these here on Sunday after looking at my calendar and seeing that, okay, so it's going to be a lot of the home front is going to be heavier than the work front, right? We have a lot of things going on at home. So what are the verses or what are the affirmations that I'm going to need to have in the forefront, so that when I start to feel like I can't do that because it's natural, I can rely on something to just remind me of what is possible. And what is possible is this, right?
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's happening, right?
Facts.
So those are two things that I do. And then with my clients, I have the same conversation that I'm having with you, because like us, they'll spend, 20 minutes telling me about this incredible idea that I'm like, how did I not think of that? That's amazing. Right. And then they spend an equal amount of time giving me all the reasons why it can go left.
Right.
So
yeah.
I say to them, yeah, that's possible. Yes, that's also possible. But you know what's also possible? That you can create this amazing thing that women need.
Yeah.
Right? That you can do this thing that you were meant to do, and then people can, benefit from. So all of those possibilities are true, but which do you want to focus on?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is so good. So, man, that's really good. I love the conversation piece, right? Because those are practical things that we can do often, because when you are in this self-doubt space, literally, like, a thought can pop into your mind instantly. You could be driving and you be thinking, and then all of a sudden, you're gone. It's the rapture, right? Like, by this time you like, I need to go to the grocery store because it's gonna be apocalypse. Like, all these things are happening.
Not the apocalypse.
Yes. And all you are is in traffic, right? Like, but you've just let your brain go all the way to the left. But I think it's so important about having that conversation and saying it out loud, because some of it often is, like you said, that is possible. Those things are possible too. But what also is possible, and I think when you run them next to each other, then you have a choice. I saw a quote a few months ago on Instagram where someone said, faith and fear demand you to oh my gosh, and I knew I was going to forget this as I was saying it, but I have it on my computer so I can look at it. But faith and fear both demand you to believe in something you cannot choose. You choose, right? So faith and fear both demand you to believe in something you cannot see. You choose. And when I heard that, I was like, what the crap, because it's accurate. But then what do you, and basically what you're saying is that what do you decide to put your attention on? Do you decide to put your attention on the fear? Do you decide to say, hey, I'm just going to sit over here and I'm just going to worry myself to nonstop about
that? And then half the time, whatever you're tripping about isn't even happening.
It isn't even happening.
What I love about the conversation part is that there have been those moments that when I play it out, I'm like, oh, you know what, fear? I think you get this one, because I didn't think through all of these possibilities. I need to fall back and do some more research or whatever the case may be to make sure that the next step is solid.
Yeah.
So there's benefit in that. Like you said, you get to choose, but all of the options are on the table. You're not just saying, okay, I'm afraid and therefore I won't.
Yeah.
You are shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the other part I was going to say is that when you had that opportunity to be able to impact and pour into your clients in that moment, I would say that them hiring you is choosing faith, right? Because it is a big decision when you're on. I remember being on the phone and saying, like, Lord, like, because I knew what it was. When you think sometimes, and I know this, even if it doesn't come out, I know what I mean by it, but it's not just about the cost, right? Like monetary, it's the cost of what it is to go down this journey. Because when you say, I'm going to invest in myself to the point that I'm saying, this is mine, it's It's now or never. It's go or don't go. It is piss or get off the pot, right?
Like makes it real.
Yeah.
The investment experience. So part of the mental hesitation is, let me give you a great practice. Let me give you a simple example. The Peloton. Mm-hmm. So I really want one. Like I really, really want one. But I am like, if I invest this money, am I really gonna use this thing beyond like the first 3 cycles? Right. I really don't have enough faith in myself that I'm really going to do that. So I think that part of what is happening mentally, especially when you're thinking about investing, whatever it is, the monetary amount, you're thinking, once I do this, I have to commit.
Yeah.
Part of the fear, right? Like once I buy this Peloton, there's no way that this thing can just sit in the office and collect dust.
Yeah. But I think even with that example, the other part is that some of the investment though also is that not only the cost of the Peloton, but deciding what is it going to cost me by not getting my health, right? Exactly. Not like, and that's what you talk about, we're weighing all the options. And when we're talking about, investing into your intellectual property and making sure that it is secure and, you're doing the foundational pieces of being a business. Cause to me, I consider that a foundational piece of it, is like, this isn't just about the money. It's about the future of what it is that I want. Yeah. Because when I make that, like for me personally, I knew that before you sent me all the paperwork, I prayed over that thing and I said, Lord, if this is your will, like everything will come back and there will be no issue. And so when that thing came back and I was like, no, well, wait a minute.
So that makes me feel that makes the story even more special that you actually prayed on it. So I pray over like whatever big decision I have to make. So the fact that you prayed on it and move forward, that makes the victory even sweeter.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And then when that thing came through, I said, oh, well, I guess I'm doing this because I told the Lord this was my final confirmation. Right. I was like, if you don't want me to do this, this will not happen.
He said, I do
and
want
he said, boom, there you go. And
right.
So I think it's just so important that when no matter what decision it is, like the fear and the self-doubt will come up, but having that conversation with yourself of what it is and what it could be is really important. So what have you learned about yourself during this journey that you didn't know before?
I would say that oftentimes I felt like I was in the lion's den, and I now see myself as a lion too. I think that for so long you convince yourself that you don't belong in certain circles. Why? I don't know, right? Because if you were invited into certain circles, certainly the people that open a door think that you are
that you deserve to be there, right? Yeah,
and you're the only one that's doubting yourself. So I finally feel very confident in all of my roles. Now they're not perfect, and I need to stress that, right? Like the wife thing, the mother thing, the entrepreneur, like it's messy, but I feel really confident in how I show up every day because I try to the best of my ability to show up in a very meaningful and intentional way. So whatever it may be, if it's a consultation or if it's dinner with the kids, I just want to be present in that moment. And I think that there's a level of confidence that just automatically you build by saying, no, I do belong here. And I'm going to prove it to myself by being intentional and operating in excellence.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things that you said about not why we show up in those spaces. Now, I mean, clearly that's a part of some of the self-doubt, right? Like, do I really belong here? But I think the minute you take ownership of the fact that you are worthy and that you do deserve this spot because you worked for it, right? Like a lot of times we're trying to prove our worth and we don't have to. We're trying to prove our value.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, the child, listen, okay? we could be here forever talking about that. But the moment that you recognize that this is this is my lane, right? And what you said is that I'm confident in the space that I'm in. And I think a lot of times what I've noticed, and even for myself, what I've done, is that comparison thing and trying to fit in other people's spaces versus saying, no, this is mine. Right. And and we all can fit in this same space. So slaying self-doubt and guard your genius can be at the exact same table. We don't have to be saying like, no, you come on over here or whatever. No, it's enough room for all of us. Right.
I would go a step further and say that at the same table, you can have people that quote unquote you're direct competitors with, right?
Absolutely.
There's so much room for all of us to grow and to be abundant. So yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. On top of the fact that, what God wants to have, what his plan is and what his purpose is going to happen anyway. Right. And so what we're doing is you're just delaying it by, getting caught up in your own stuff. I read a scripture earlier today that was like, I'm paraphrasing really, but I know it's Galatians 3:3, but it's basically like, like this didn't even start with you. Why would you even try to do it in your own strength? Like the audacity basically of yourself. The audacity. Well, in the Bible it says, "Are you that foolish?" Right? But it's basically, do you have the audacity?
We are.
Yes, we are. Right, exactly. But do you have the audacity to think that you're gonna carry this thing out, even though it didn't even start with you? And I think sometimes that's what happens. We get into our own head and into our own space. Like, oh, I can do this. Like, Lord, go work on somebody else, right? And then we get caught up in that, and then we're like, well, wait a minute, Jesus, you supposed to be over here with me, but no, you was trying to do it. And so I think sometimes mixing all of that in, it causes a whole bunch of confusion. But the other thing that you said was about being able to manage all the spaces that you are the queen of, right? All the spaces that you lead in your marriage and your, in your motherhood journey and your entrepreneurship. And it is a hard juggle and it's difficult. But I think one of the things that I have been learning is that my kids are watching me, right? And your kids are watching you, right? And your husband is watching, and the people around you are watching. And at the end of the day, nobody is meant to do anything perfect. We're meant to do it in a balance that works for everybody. And some stuff takes priority, right? Like last week, my son was sick. Okay, well, I had a podcast to do, and that thing had to wait because the priority was my kid,
So two things. One, I want to go back to something that you said, because you made me reach for my post-it note because it was so interesting. You said about the verse that you just read, right? So we were reading the story of David versus Goliath to the kids this morning, and I mean, how many times have we read the story? I've read the story throughout my entire life, right? I'm so familiar with it. And then as I'm reading it, this one line stood out, though I've read it 1,000 times, but it says, armed with a simple sling and 5 smooth stones, David goes to meet Goliath. So you think of, like, the Bible was specific to say armed with a simple sling. Like, I want y'all to know that it wasn't the sling. That it wasn't the stone, like it wasn't David at all, right? Like but what did David do? He showed up. He went to go meet Goliath, and I had to write it down because though I have read that 1,000 times, it's never, you pick up things that you need at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
So though I've read it forever, in that moment, I'm like, oh, so he had nothing technically that was going to be a worthy match to this giant, right? But he takes what he has, which is a simple sling and 5 stones, and he goes to the challenge, right? He goes to the opposition. So we already have what we need. It just doesn't look very impressive, right? Because I'm sure he's thinking to himself, a sling,
right? But I think even with that, I know, but even when you think about that story, because we've been my pastor's been talking about it. I want to say the last couple of weeks, but even when you think about that story, is that the fact that he went what he had, because before that, remember, Saul tried to give him his armor and all of his stuff, and he said, "This don't fit me. This isn't. I'm gonna go with what I know, go with what I've been using." And for me, when I think about that story, I'm always like, go, it always takes me back to even a Judges 6:14, which is something I tell myself all the time. Go with the strength you have. I am sending you. So it's not about, we all have everything that we need, right? Yeah. But we have to go with what we have. And a lot of times we're all waiting, right?
You have to go like that
like that. Go.
Full stop. You have to go. He sees what you have, and it doesn't seem like much. It's not much in your hands.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yes. Listen, we about to be preaching on here, girl.
Yeah. So I just had to go back to that, because I literally just wrote this down this morning, because it just struck me like, oh no, he went to the opposition.
Yes.
Like you know what I mean, with what he had.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I wanted to say, based on what you said with the whole, with your son, what I've also learned is that for me, balance is not real. I try not to even use that word, because it's like, why use it when I know that I have yet to experience it? I go with harmony, meaning it just, it all works together in some miraculous way that I can't tell you. I can't tell you how the sausage is made, but it just works together, and it's more balanced. Last week I was heavy in the office, and things in the house slipped through the cracks, right? This week it's, it's just, there's seasons, there's weeks, there's days. And for me, it's just harmony. Everything just fits in. It's not balanced though.
Yeah, no, I definitely isn't. When you said that, it made me think about some years ago. When I was in my 9 to 5, my kids were smaller, under 10. So they still needed more, attention. I was leading 3 small groups in church. I was the coach of some leaders in small group. My kids was in sports. Like, the job that I have required my attention 24. Like, when I think about it now, I say to myself, I don't know how I made it through that time.
But you did.
But I did, right? And so sometimes I lean on that to be like, things were crazier then, and I didn't realize how I was getting it all done. So this right here, sometimes this is light work. We overdo it in our head, and we say, oh, this is so much and so much. But sometimes I have to say, my life was busier, and I made it through, and we made it work, and we figured it out. And this season we would do the same thing. So yeah, I think that that's important. And whoever needed to hear that was for y'all, okay? Because that was we had this conversation. So let's talk about all things guard your genius, their genius, your genius, everybody's genius. We guarding everybody's genius. So one of the biggest things I want to talk about is, definitely, we talked already about what you do, but why is it so? My biggest thing is, why is it so important for people to guard their genius? I need all the entrepreneurs out here to know, the people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, like, when should you start thinking about guarding your genius? How, like, just we got to go, we gonna dig deep. Did you hear that ad at the beginning of the show? If you're a business owner looking to expand your reach, you can promote your company or product with a host-read pre-roll or mid-roll ad by me on the Slaying Self-Doubt podcast. If you want more information, email info@FeliciaWallace.com. That's info@FeliciaWallace.com. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. So we're all out here with these amazing, incredible ideas, right? And part of what makes my job challenging is that, we treat our home as property. Yeah, because you can touch it and you can see it, and it's property, it's real estate, and you see your car as property. But we neglect the fact that our ideas, while not tangible, are absolutely property. Like, you own that, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs jump out there with what is a genius idea. That's why we say guard your genius, and they start to build this thing. And as you know, building a business takes such commitment. It is a financial commitment. It is a huge commitment of time.
Yeah.
And you're out here doing this amazing thing, and then you find out, oh wow, I just built this brand that I can't use because I get this letter in the mail that says, hey, I own that brand name in the same space. You are infringing on my trademark. You need to stop using it. And then now you are faced with a dilemma that, you've built this thing that you don't technically own, right?
Yeah.
Or you built this thing and then somebody says, I like that. I'm going to do that. You know what I mean?
Like
a million scenarios, right? So one of the things that I love to say to people is don't let excitement overshadow strategy. So there's like this line where it's like, you know, it's not always YOLO, right? It's not always just do it. There has to be a moment where you have to think strategically about your next move.
Yeah.
Right. So in the perfect world, people are taking care of their intellectual property and making sure that they are building solid foundations for their business before they're even in the marketplace. I know that that's not realistic, right? I know that oftentimes what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? I have to make money to hire, you know, legal solutions. So I have to be out. So, you know what I mean? Like what comes first? So I get that. But we should all prioritize making sure that at some point in the journey, sooner rather than later, we have these very important conversations. Like, am I, you know, have I created a legal wall that separates me from the business? So God forbid, if the business is sued for whatever reason, I can protect my car and my house and my personal assets. Like, have I created, you know, a legal entity that separates me personally from the business? Have I make sure that I own the brand name and the logo and all of the things that I am using to identify to the world that this is my service or this is my good that I am selling. So these are all the questions that you want to make sure that you have answered, especially when you are going to embark on the journey of entrepreneurship, because it's a lot of work.
No, I think it's that. So thank you for telling us that and sharing, because I think one of my questions was, you know, you, like I said, you hear about it and people tell you to do it. And it's like, well, should I do it off the break? You know, like, is as soon as I got the idea, should I have been doing it? As soon as it, you know, I put it on Instagram, should I have been putting the thing? And so I had a friend who actually was in it. Well, she's in trademark and patent, and literally I had not seen her since high school graduation, and I randomly saw her in it's not random, God's intentional, because I was having this conversation. I see her in the Panera. I tell her what I do, and she's like, "Oh," so I'm like, "What do you do?" She's like, "It's boring," and I'm like, "No, tell me what did you do?" And so she's like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer. I do trademark it," and I'm like, looking around like, now come on. But what she does is for like a corporate level, right? And so I just had a conversation with her and was like, you know, I just need to ask you just like 2 questions to figure out what it is. And also, and the first thing that she says, just use the TM as soon, like when you're ready to go down that road to trademarking, you know, find the person that you trust and all that stuff. But in the meantime, every single time that you use your logo, your name, put that TM on there so that it's the intent to use. I think that's what it is.
So essentially you're saying that you are definitely going to embark on that, you know, on the process of getting it registered. You can't use the R until it is officially registered, which I hope you're using the R.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was great advice that she gave you.
So my question is, how soon should you be using the TM? So, you know, in my case, it was 2 years after it, but because at the time I didn't know it was supposed to be, it was an entrepreneurship journey. It was literally, it started as the name of my small group in church, right? So it was not.
Oh, is that how it started?
That is how it started. God gave me the name, and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And so he was like, oh, change the name of your small group. And that's how it started. Then came the podcast. And then came all the other stuff.
That is, oh my God, the more that we talk, the cooler the whole journey is to me.
That's amazing. So for those people who know they want to like, oh, I want to start a business and I want, you know, this is going to be the name of it. Should they immediately add that TM to the back of the name?
I don't, that's not where I think I would start, though. I understand why she gave you that advice. I do think that it's solid, but I think that the first thing we should all do is just you do a basic Google search, right? Because you want to make sure that it, and a Google, so let me make sure that I'm not overhyping a Google search. There's a reason why you hire a trademark attorney, because we have access to different tools that give us a better idea of, you know, how to clear the name to make sure that it's available. But if assuming that that's just not an option, right? You want to do a Google search and see exactly what is out there with this brand that you want to build. You also want to go to the USPTO website and do a search on there to see what is registered. Because at the end of the day, if a trademark is registered, the fact that you're using it with the TM, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't even matter.
You see what I'm saying? Especially when you're talking about something that was already registered years before, it's a known mark. So that's why I don't think that you want to rely so much on that. You want to do some due diligence, and for sure there are things that you can do on your own. One easy thing to do is go to GoDaddy and see if the domain is available. If the domain is not available, you likely want to reevaluate where you're going with that, because that's an easy way to tell whether it's being used or not. So I think that there's a lot of due diligence that we can do, especially in the beginning when we're like, okay, I like this name, I want to do it. Let me just see what is out there. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do that. They just come up with a great name and they run. And that's part of the hustle culture. Like, oh, just go, just leap. And it's like, part of that is good, but you have to tame that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I'm glad that you said that, because it went completely out of my mind. But and I didn't even think about it. But yes, I did do that. I made sure that I Googled slaying self-doubt first. She did tell me about the USPTO.
USPTO.
Yeah, USPTO search to make sure that the name, was there. Wasn't there. And then I think I did that. I think I Googled it. I mean, not even Googled it. I went through Instagram and Facebook, and I tried to just those things. I went through everything, and I did. And I actually, from another a local entrepreneur here, had posted something years ago that was like, if you have an idea and you really think you might want to move on it, buy the domain. And I have stuck with that. If I think of something, I go and see.
Girl, I own so many domains that I have no intent to use.
Exactly. And y'all, it's $8. Okay. We ain't talking about a whole bunch of money that costs to be able to do this. But one of the things that I also noticed is that when I decided to go down this avenue of trademarking slaying self-doubt, I was like, I really need to I wanted to own any variation of slaying self-doubt. So I went and I bought slay self-doubt, slay your self-doubt.
You did not cut to play. That's great. That's absolutely great.
I went through everything that anybody could think of, because I was like, listen, you have to come to me to be able to see that nothing close to this is going to be. So, but that was one of the things I've learned, because again, like I said, I've heard the horror stories of people going through with their business, making money, and then they get to the trademarking and they be like, no, it's too close to something else, and they have to give it up and change the name and rebrand and have to go through that.
It's nuanced, right? One of the things that drives me nuts is when people they'll say something like, oh, I have an LLC, and because I have an LLC, I don't need a trademark. And it's like apples and oranges. These are two, they're both important, but they don't operate in the same manner. Like, if you have your LLC, your name is protected in your state. Awesome. But we're all doing business all over the place. Like, the internet has removed borders, right? Like, I have clients all over the country. So protecting my name just in one state.
Great, but what about
great or not, you know? So, and then also understanding that how the trademark is used matters, right? So, you may be doing shoes and then you see that somebody's using it for shirts. So you're like, oh, I'm good because I'm doing shoes and they're doing shirts. Well, not really, right? Because it's nuanced, right? The would consider that the goods are too closely related for the marks to be able to coexist. So there's a lot of little nuanced things that people, it's not as simple as, oh, I did a Google search, I didn't see anybody using it, I'm going to take it. That's why it takes time.
Which is the reason why when we had that very first conversation, like in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to see what this is. And then when I knew what questions I was asking. It's like, is this necessary? You know, do I have to? And when you broke it down, I was like, yeah, see, she said way too many words that I did not. I don't even have time to try to figure this out. I was just like, what I know for sure is that I can't miss on this, right? Like what like for me personally, it was like, this is a God thing. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know this is my next step. So I have to just move forward. Now, if the government says, whatever after, like I can't do anything, but I couldn't not shoot my shot, right? To just see. And I also didn't want to fumble the ball by trying to do it myself. And so there's a difference of knowing, I'm quick to tell somebody that is not my ministry. I'm not even about to go down that road.
That's me. That's me. Listen, we are working on a new website and I'm like, that's not my ministry.
We're not doing that. So so I'm glad that you gave us that information, because I think that there's with social media, with the internet, you can Google almost anything, right? And you can get the information that you need. So what, for that person who is on the fence about whether or not they need to get a trademark, when is a good time to start looking into it? Because I remember talking to somebody who said, you don't get a trademark until you can afford it. Well, I don't even know what that means, right?
What like, does
that mean until I'm making enough money? Can you afford
a rebrand? Like, can you afford to invest, $10,000 into a rebrand? I mean, if you can, then okay, I get it, maybe. But so in the ideal world, you want to at least have a conversation with a trademark professional as soon as this is the brand name that I'm trying to build. I know that factually. Before I invest in doing so, let me have a conversation with a trademark attorney. Let me see if I can hire someone to do a clearance and at least confirm that I can operate in that space with that name. I understand that sometimes is not the case. So I say that if you aren't able to do it before you launch, that you prioritize doing it as soon as possible. Okay. The longer that you wait, the more time and money you are investing into something that you're not quite sure is yours. Yeah. Right. So I think the rule of thumb is if you can before, if you can't, as soon as possible.
As soon as possible. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice, because I've seen a lot of rebrands, right? Like you see people doing stuff, or people having to, whether or not they want to put up the fight. You know what I'm saying? What they want to go through with it, because everybody we all know that there's some trifling people out here that even if they don't plan to use it, they don't want you to have it. You know what I'm saying? So there's still things that you. And then there's some things that are out of our control, right? And so I think that advice is very sound. It's not specific, right? But if you can do it before, do it. If not, as soon as you can, especially if you know it's something you want to invest in. And I think that was, for me, it was like, I know that this is the journey I'm supposed to be going on. And, if it was just a hobby, I probably would have been like, meh. But being as though I know, I'm like, this is my empire that I'm supposed to be building. Like,
I love that word.
Let me tell you something. And being as though that I know this, I need to make sure that don't nothing happen over here. And that's why I say, for me, that was a very huge foundational piece for me to be able to say now, like, and I feel so much better. Like, I felt like I could breathe once because I was like, no, this is mine. Like, for real. Like, it just felt easier. But then the crazy part about it is that there's other things that I've been doing, and I've been like seeing, and then I would see it kind of like something close to it, and I would like see, okay. So my second question is about multiple trademarks, right? So say you have, there's people who have, we'll just use my business, for example. So I know that right now, how Slaying Self-Doubt is trademarked is under, like podcasting, coaching, and consulting, like in that realm. Which is what I think people sometimes don't understand, is that it's all different, right? And so if you wanted to add, home goods or apparel or cars or, who knows, we can have a slayingself.com, or, different things, those all require different trademarks, correct?
Well, so let's take the example that you're using. So right now you are operating in the classes that we put you in, which is the podcasting and all of that, coaching services. Yes. So let's just say that now you're like, hey, I want to do shirts and I want to do sweatpants and I want to do hoodies. Then we would do another application for, assuming that you're doing it under the same name. And then we would apply for those classes, because right now you're not operating in that space. So you're not, in those classes. So you would say, I am going to expand and I want to make sure that slaying self-doubt is protected, is specifically within clothing, because I'm going to do these 5 pieces or whatever it is. And then we will do the exact same process again, except that now we are focused on these different areas that you are now going to operate in. So it could be the case. So when you say multiple trademarks, it could be the case that it's literally multiple trademarks, meaning a trademark for my logo, a trademark for my slogan tagline, and then a trademark for my name. Those are multiple different trademarks. But it also could be, like you said, well, I have this trademark and now I'm expanding into different services or different goods. So I want to apply within those classes.
Okay. Yeah. So, and again, y'all see, this is a very informative episode, y'all. So make sure you tell your friends. I'm telling you now, share this with people, because y'all not going to get this information anywhere else. Okay. Just right here. And then I will say, this is my last question about trademarking, because I've heard this with people, phrases, right? People have a saying, people have something that they say often. And I've heard people say, you better trademark that. You better trademark that. You better. And I'd be like, it literally in my mind, I'm thinking, are you supposed to trademark that? Do you trademark phrases? So there's my question. Do you trademark phrases? Like if it's within the business. So say, we'll use Nike, for example. We know Nike is Nike, right? But just do it is that's their phrase.
So when you say phrase, I hear slogan or a tagline. So Nike is a great example, because just do it happens to be their slogan. That's their tagline. So that's absolutely, if that's how you're using the phrase, meaning you're slaying self-doubt, and then there's this phrase that you use as a source identifier, which essentially means when people hear this phrase, they are associating that phrase with you. When people hear just do it, they're not thinking Reebok.
Anything else, right?
When people hear home of the Whopper, they're not thinking McDonald's. So if you are using said phrase as a way to identify your goods and your services, yes, that's something that you can trademark, because it's a brand asset that you're using to identify your goods and services. Now, just because you have a really dope phrase that you use and you say all the time, that's not necessarily something that you can trademark. Are you using it to make this connection in the mind of consumers? Like when you hear this, you think of X product and X owner, you know what I mean? And X, I should say. If that's the way you're using it, I think that Nike is just a great example, because when you hear just do it, you're talking about Nike.
Yeah.
They're using that phrase as a source identifier so that people know it's Nike and not, I don't know, some other
something else, right?
So, yes, that's then if you can check the box, yes, then yes, that's a trademark.
Okay, yeah. So there's times where you have these conversations, and people are saying these things, and you kind of like, oh, should I do that? Maybe that sounds like a good idea. And I think then I can just say for me sometimes, and I've had a conversation with other people, that it starts to get confusing, and it's like, well, does that even go with my brand? Should I stick with one thing? Am I going to lose it? What if somebody else uses it? Can I say it often? Can I put it on a shirt? Can I do these different things if I don't plan to, if I don't plan to trademark it, if I don't plan to? And I'm saying this for, like, I've seen people use, like, they have, over the last 2 years, t-shirt businesses have just skyrocketed, right? Yes. And so I've heard people like, yeah, I'm gonna trademark this and put this on the shirt, and then I'm gonna trademark, and I'm like, I don't know if that necessarily is how it works. Like, I don't think you.
So if what they're saying is I'm gonna put this on a shirt, full stop, like that's the business plan, like that is probably not going to work from a trademark perspective. If all is I have this great line. I'm gonna put on a shirt and that's it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that that's gonna work.
Yeah.
So the best and the easiest way to look at it is, am I using X, whatever X may be, whether it's a logo, a name, or a slogan, to create a connection in the mind of consumers between that thing and my business and my brand? If the answer is yes, then you're operating in the trademark space.
Yeah. Okay. See, y'all, this is the reason why this podcast exists, among so many other reasons, right? Because the Lord knows that we be needing this information. And I will say that there's somebody out here that I am sure has these questions, has even more questions than I have, right? But they're afraid to even book a consultation.
No, my DM stays open. I try to answer as many questions as I can in my DMs. So yeah, at Guard Your Genius. Shameless.
Yes, and see, that's what, no, it ain't a shameless, because that's what I was about to ask. How can people get in contact with you? Because I think sometimes that this is what was just put on my spirit. Like, sometimes you just book the consultation. So that you can ask all the questions that you have, because sometimes those questions where you're thinking, no, that's not even going to work. No, that's not it, because you're already talking yourself out of it. You may talk to Neidy and find out, no, you absolutely need to trademark that. Or no, you don't need to stress over that part right now, but we do need to worry about this. And, I think that what I realized in having this conversation with you is that there's so many people who need to hear this information. And I'm grateful that you did it here on the Slangs Up podcast. No, and because it's going to live here forever, like, people are going to always be able to come back and be like, oh, you got a trademark question? I'm going to need you to go to this.
No. So one, I think that this conversation is so important because, again, so many of us have amazing ideas that we're not taking the proper steps to make sure that we don't run into major legal obstacles later. So this is very timely. Whenever I am asked to talk about this topic, I always accept, because I know what the other side looks like. I know when I'm getting a phone call where it's not to trademark, but to defend someone, or because, oh, I got this letter, it's a cease and desist. I have no idea what to do with it. And those calls aren't nice, right? Yeah. They're not happy calls, because half the time people have invested so much time and money. So these conversations are important. And I thank you for being the vehicle that this information gets out. That being said, yes, you can find me at Guard Your Genius on IG. I answer DMs, maybe not within, immediately, but certainly within 2 days. I try to get back to folks. And, you can book a consultation. Like you said, half the time you just don't know what you don't know, and having a conversation, and you can attest to the consultation. Like, we go deep, right? To make sure that we know exactly what it is that you're doing, how you plan to use it. And it may be the case that you're right. We'll say, well, you don't need X right now, but have you thought about B? It's a whole nother conversation that you probably weren't even thinking we were going to have. Yeah. So it's worth the investment of your time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I would say no question is a dumb question, especially when you don't know nothing. Okay. Because you are the expert. And that is what I did. I wrote down every single question I was going to have. And I was like, okay, I got one more question.
I remember.
Like, no, wait a minute. I think I got one more question.
You came prepared. You were like, I'm going to pay you, but you still work.
Right. Listen, because I wanted to make sure that I understood what I was getting myself into.
Absolutely.
And it's so often that we just say yes, or we just hear. Like I said, right now, am I like loving the booming business of, Black women owners and them just coming left and right? That is a beautiful thing, but we also have to do it right. We also have to do it in order, because like you said, it is more expensive to have to start over because you didn't do the right thing in the first place. Yes.
We're talking about the money, which of course, yes, but painful because you've given so much of yourself.
Yeah, that's why I say, when I'm saying cost, I'm not even the money is involved in that, but The cost of it is your peace. The cost of it is your, the discomfort that it has if it doesn't work out. The distraction that it becomes when now that is, you trying to figure out like, how did I get here? All of those different things. It is worth the investment of your time, your energy, your peace, all of that to just book the consultation, ask the questions so that and then hire her. Okay, in that order.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you so much, Neidy, for being here. Thank you for answering all of our questions. Y'all, I will make sure all the information is in the show notes so that y'all can go ahead and contact her and book your consultation today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was fun.
Yes, it was. All right, y'all, that's all for this week. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to share, subscribe, rate, and review. Remember to head over to Facebook and Instagram and follow me at Slaying Self-Doubt. Oh, wait, don't forget, go to my YouTube channel and watch this episode, and remember to press the subscribe button. Until next week, see ya.